Let's take a look at discussions for the morning. And first, let me introduce my guest. I have Abraham Amaliba. He's a legal practitioner, also a law lecturer, and he is a member of the NDC as well. And thanks for joining me, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. And Fred Amankwa Safo is a businessman, and he's also an entrepreneur and has been around for a long time. He's also a member of the MPP as well. Okay, how are you?
Doing great.
No, I don't want to talk about the subject of you contesting. What
Wow.
position did you contest?
National Vice Chairman of the MPP.
All right.
And lost them.
Yes, and I didn't win.
Okay.
No, he
You
didn't.
didn't win.
I didn't win this
You
time.
didn't lose, but you didn't win.
I didn't lose. I didn't win this time.
He didn't win this time.
Okay.
I'm hoping that you would one day be an executive of the party as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, we need people like you in the political party.
Thank you,
just
I'm
like
humbled.
Abraham as well.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a subject that's captured the front pages of the various newspapers and again a lot more prominence across the media space. And I should say is an issue. I don't know whether there's been a precedent or not as to whether if the president is not around, his vice is also not around, and ultimately we need the next president or whoever needs to take up that very position, and ultimately a constitution is saying the speaker whether he has to be sworn in or not again, following the last time he was sworn in. And what's your comment on whatever transpired yesterday?
Let me say good morning to your viewers. What happened yesterday, if my memory serves me right, is the first of its kind, if for nothing at all, under the 4th Republican Constitution. It has never happened that the Speaker has refused to take the oath. But let's put into proper perspective the Speaker's concerns. What he said was that because he took the oath before, when we had a similar situation where the President and the Vice were out in September, he is of the view that anytime they leave, as we have it now, that oath is reactivated. So he doesn't need to take the oath, but he will assume the office. Now this calls for an interpretation, constitutional interpretation, as to whether his position is right or wrong. But if you look at the black letter law, the law, and under the Constitution, Article 60(11) thereabout, talks about the fact that when the Speaker is to assume office as president, he has to be sworn in. Now, the argument put across by some people who share the views of the Speaker is that anytime the President is away, the Vice is supposed to take his place. But the Vice President is never sworn in. Why is it that when the Speaker is going to be taken, is now to assume that office, he is to be sworn in? But that argument cannot hold, because the President and the Vice President jointly or at the inauguration swore an oath to engage or to perform the functions of the executive. The Speaker does not belong to the executive arm of government. He belongs to the legislative arm of government. So, if he is crossing over to perform the executive function, he has to swear an oath to enable him properly perform that function. And so, in my mind, I think that the Speaker must repetitively swear that oath anytime both gentlemen are
In
out.
consonance with what Article 60...
It's talking about, yes. But he has raised an argument. He has raised a constitutional matter. This needs constitutional interpretation. And so I think that rather than castigating him, we should test this and see what the...
Did he take the decision on his own? Because yesterday when he was addressing Parliament, that is a committee of the whole, this is what he said, that, well, he had conferred with the Chief Justice in his lobby. And as a result of that, the Chief Justice reminded him that looking at the way the law is and what had been done in the past, it was not necessary for the oath again to be taken, you know, in that very respect. But the Article 60, and we're talking about subsection 11,
yes.
Particularly says well, where the president and the vice president are both unable to perform the functions of the president, the Speaker of Parliament shall perform those functions until the president or the vice president is able to perform those functions, or a new president assumes office, as the case may be. In 12, the president shall, the Speaker shall, before commencing to perform the functions of the president under clause 11 of this very article, take and subscribe the oath set out in relation to the office of the president.
Yes. So when you look at 11, it says that the Speaker shall assume office until the return of any of the two.
And
now,
in 12,
in my candid opinion, let's stay at 11. In my candid opinion, when any of these gentlemen return, that oath he took becomes invalid. There cannot be an oath which is in perpetuity. So there's always a time that that oath truncates, and if you are to assume, else we would have said that anytime a president is re-elected, why? Hasn't he sworn an oath in his first term? Then he should continue.
Because the same person.
It's the same person. But we swear him in again.
But it's in a new jurisdiction, so to speak,
No.
because his term has ended, and
Good.
we've entered another phase of a term
Good.
within an electoral.
Good. So the return of those two gentlemen has also ended the term of the Speaker. The reason why the Speaker was made to assume that position is because they were out of the country. So the term has also ended upon their return. So that oath cannot be used for another occasion where
So
there's...
each time he must,
He must,
in
my view, yes, he must. It must be repetitive anytime he leaves.
Now, Fred, it's an interesting subject. Well, you also made up your mind to make a commentary on this. In 12, the Speaker shall, before commencing to perform the functions of the President, under clause 11 of this article, take and subscribe the oath set out in relation to the office of President. My understanding is that, well, in 11, it is set out that the Speaker takes over, but it is precedent on him taking an oath. And so, while he took the first one, the president and his vice returned. And once they returned, the assumption is that the period and the validity of the first oath was off, was void. And as a result of that, once the two were out of the jurisdiction of the territories in which they were heads of state or president, then he would need to take another oath to qualify him as stated in 11.
Well, thank you very much and good morning. This is very interesting, like you said. And I have a very quote-unquote diabolical argument to put across. First of all, the case is made that when the president leaves, he must take an oath. Both the president and vice, not in the jurisdiction, the Speaker must take an oath. When he takes the oath, does it invalidate the presidential oath the president himself took at the beginning of his tenure?
No, that's a different argument. You are mixing.
Well, let me make my point. Does it? And if
the president is out, then it's stated clearly in the Constitution.
If the president returns, does the president take an oath before he resumes the presidency? We have written the Constitution that is so nebulous, that is so inconsistent in various articles, in various provisions in our Constitution. And it's not just this one. There are so many provisions in the Constitution that seems to contradict itself. All right? The president leaves the jurisdiction. He has taken an oath on the 7th of January when he assumes office. He leaves, the vice leaves. A Speaker of Parliament is sworn in. Does that Speaker's oath invalidate the presidential oath? So that on his return, the president must be sworn again. Because then you have a Speaker of Parliament
who has been sworn in.
Who has been sworn in as a president. But
in your absence.
In his absence. Now, when the president returns, he does not take an oath to assume his duty. Okay? So, yes, this is a very gray area for us all to comprehend. But for me, is the form and the substance of the matter. This is not a material issue for us to discuss. It does not put butter and bread on the table.
Well, we do understand. Beyond the issues of the currency of the subject.
Yes.
There's also an issue that also borders on the Constitution. Unless perhaps you're premising your argument on this very ground, that as you raise your argument, that if the president is outside the jurisdiction, the borders, the board, then he ceases to be our president.
Does he cease to be a president?
No, he doesn't cease to be a president.
You cannot have two.
But that is why the Constitution also makes it clear that in the absence, within the borders of where he is president, somebody needs to act in the absence of the vice president as well.
Exactly. I agree with that argument. My point is that if the speaker swears in an oath to assume the presidency, does the oath the president sworn in on the 7th of January, does it invalidate it? Such that because somebody has sworn an oath, you are no more a president, so to speak. So on your return, you need to swear another oath to become a president, because once you come in, the Speaker of Parliament, so to speak, does not unswear the oath. You've sworn an oath. If there's a word like that, if you can permit me to use it, if there's a word like that, because you cannot have two.
In practice, you don't swear out of an oath out of office. I mean, definitely.
Why shouldn't you? Because you have sworn an oath that is going on your return. Your oath.
In practice around the world, we're talking about
on your return.
What are best practices around the world?
On your return, on your return, you don't go and say, "I am no more the president," but your presidency invalidates itself because the president himself had arrived. It's back in the jurisdiction. Look, I am not a lawyer, but if you look at Article 57(2), it says, the president shall take precedence over all, I quote, all other persons in Ghana, and in descending order, the vice president, the speaker of parliament, the chief justice shall take precedence over all other persons in Ghana. 3 says, Okay. 4 says, without prejudice to the provisions of Article 2 of this Constitution and subject to the operations of the prerogative rights, the president shall not, whilst in office. Okay, no, that's what I told you. I'm not. All I'm trying to get across to us is that this swear an oath, president coming, go and swear an oath again. You have established already. The speaker had taken an oath as a speaker of parliament, and the Constitution states that if the president is not there, the vice is not there.
So you are saying that by that very article and the clause therein is implicit.
It's implicit.
So we don't need to go through all these processes.
Let me address that. That's an interesting point.
Yeah.
The oath taken by the president and the vice president is to perform executive functions, not to go and be a farmer, not to go and be a boxer, not to go and be a market woman selling the market. The oath that the speaker took was to do legislative functions. So, if the speaker is crossing from one organ or one function to the other.
But we're talking about an instance where the speaker had already taken an earlier oath.
Good. So
to assume the president in the absence of the president.
This is my answer to him. The reason why he has to swear an oath is because he's no more going to just be doing legislative functions. He's crossing to executive functions. So you need to empower him to do that by the oath.
Well, he's already been empowered by the first one he took. No. We are talking about 2 oaths here. I'm now dealing with the oath that he took to become a legislative leader or a speaker. Now the other one, the one he took in September. When you read 6011, it says that he shall be a president, act as president until the return of the president or the vice president. Now, here again, it tells you that the president is always the president wherever he goes to. Whether he's in Ghana or outside Ghana, he's still the president. Else the Constitution will not have referred to him as when the president returns. If going out would have made him not to be a president, the Constitution would have said that until the man returns. But they said that until the president returns. So he's still the president. Now when he returns, because the reason why the speaker took over the reins of government was because of the absence of the president. The vacuum that was being created.
Yes. When he returns,
the president and the vice president.
When they return, the speaker ceases to be president. So anytime they move out again, he has to swear the oath. Bearing in mind my argument that he's going to cross over from the legislative function to perform executive function. But you know that the vice president does not swear an oath anytime the president goes out. Because he, together with the president, took an oath at
the inauguration,
saying that they are going to perform executive functions. I can tell you, if the Constitution would have allowed the Vice President to become Speaker in the absence of the Speaker, I'm sure the Vice President would have been asked to take an oath because he's crossing from one organ to another organ.
Mm-hmm. Okay, it's an interesting point you make. Let me just also posit this based on what he raised. If the Speaker of Parliament swore an oath, and we're making reference to the fact
Which
that
oath now?
He swore an oath to act as president in the absence of the president and his vice. He swore an oath, and the president now has arrived. What invalidates the oath that he has taken already?
This mere arrival.
You mean the Speaker?
The Speaker.
What invalidates it?
Yes.
The
arrival
of the president
and the vice
is what invalidates it. What made him to become acting president is the absence. So when he returns, it becomes invalid.
My brother, this is very interesting, but just for the sake of debates. Otherwise, I still would insist that it doesn't really add anything to us.
Well, we know it doesn't. We're facing economic challenges, but it adds something.
I disagree.
It gives us a mindset to be in a position to always interpret the Constitution better.
My point is
there's
this.
always clarity and complete unambiguity.
My point is this. As he takes the oath as a Speaker of Parliament, that oath has given him the authority to assume the reins of governance in the absence of the president and the vice. So for me, it is just for ceremonial whatever that you would have to now swear an oath to be acting as. Why would you have to swear an oath to be acting as a president when you have already sworn an oath to act if the president is not around and the vice is also not around? So even for me, the first point of even swearing an oath by a Speaker of Parliament is quite unnecessary. It's just unnecessary.
To you?
Yes, to me. It's unnecessary.
Oaths are specific.
For specific purposes.
And in the oath, they will tell you for this and for that. So you can't swear an oath.
And based on what you're raising, the Speaker on Wednesday raised a critical issue. He said the reason why he came to that very conclusion with the Chief Justice was very simple. When the President was sworn in, swore that very oath to take on the reins as President of the Republic of Ghana, and so to his vice, as they did that as elected president. He has not been elected. That's what he said, to be president or vice thereof.
Yes.
Is that a very plausible argument to me?
I don't get the connection.
Okay. He said inherent in the oath itself, in terms of the wording, is that...
Oh, I get that part. When they said that, when you look at the oath itself, it's problematic because that oath is
to be elected as president. And he said they came to that very conclusion, and actually they didn't take the decision between the two. I think the leadership of Parliament was also present, and it was because within the wording of the oath itself for the president, it said elected executive president. But he was not elected, and so once he's taken the first oath, it was not necessary for the Speaker of Parliament. And we don't need to say that, well, him per se, because it could be a woman speaker or a lady speaker, or it could be a gentleman speaker as well.
That is not an argument that can stand the test of time, because you can apply the rules mutatis mutandis. What does that mean? To suit the occasion. So that portion that said elected could have been changed when he's being sworn in to suit the circumstance. Indeed, when our late president died.
So you are saying all this can be corrected in the oath? In the oath. That can be taken at any point in time?
Mutatis mutandis. Apply it to suit the occasion. When the then vice president was taken over from the president, when we lost our president, that portion where it talked about election was tweaked to suit the occasion because of the demise of our president. So it can always be done. That is not an issue at all. Yes.
This is very worrying that we tweak things to suit the occasion.
But this is law.
Yes.
And the law was made by...
Yes. But there's nowhere in our oath, in the oath that officers are taking, You just said specific. Oaths are specific. But then at the same point, you are saying that you tweak it to suit a certain occasion. We should make provision for the Speaker of Parliament, when it becomes necessary for him to take an oath. We should have an oath that he would have to swear. So for me, we are still going around in circles on the same thing that has already been provided for in the first time the Speaker swore the oath, that he assumed the reins of...
But you are not arguing law. You're arguing reason and morality.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. The law itself is moral, isn't it?
No,
there's no morality in the law. If the facts remains that the Speaker, the Constitution is telling us that the Speaker would have to assume the reins of governance in the absence of the Vice and the President and his Vice. Okay, in that oath that the Speaker has sworn, it is making reference to the fact that if the Vice and the President leaves the jurisdiction, then he assumes it.
No, he swore that oath to do legislative work.
If you're telling me to tweak the oath to suit the occasion, yes, you say that. So that tomorrow, when the Speaker is not there and the Chief Justice is also coming, who would the Chief Justice swear the oath to?
Look, there are a lot of
these ceremonial issues. It doesn't really help governance.
To be honest with you, there are a number of things in the Constitution that needs consideration. For instance, we've not had that occasion yet, but I'm looking for a day that we'll have that occasion, where the three will all be out of this country. The President will be out, the Vice President will be out, the Speaker will be out, and then it is for the Chief Justice to assume the reins of this government. Then we'll see who will swear in the Chief Justice. Is it the Chief Justice who will swear herself in, or, in my opinion, it will be the senior most...
and all this not provided in the Constitution?
It's not provided. It's not provided. You see? And so, my point is that we agree that there are some little things that we need to include in our Constitution because it has not been provided for. And one example is what I've just talked about, where the President is out, the Vice is out, the Speaker is out, the mantle now falls on the mantle now falls on the Chief Justice to assume the reins of government. Then we'll see who will swear in the Chief Justice. Will she swear herself in, or she will ask the most senior, most judge to swear herself in?
Interesting.
In some countries, what they have done is that there is no way, I think it's Kenya, there's no way that the two gentlemen will leave the country at the same time.
It can't happen.
It can't happen in Kenya.
It can't happen.
Yes.
Okay.
So if we want, we can put that.
Can there be instances where one remains in the country but is demised? The other is travelled, but in the absence of the one acting is demised.
Yeah,
so there could be times when we will have that void.
That is when you say force majeure, circumstances beyond human control.
Good.
That is understandable. But where both leave the country, in Kenya, they've decreed that shouldn't happen.
Okay. And following what happened yesterday, we've had a lot more of you lawyers also writing to us, and many of those things have been deposited in the email boxes of various news editors, etc. And this is what we have here. I don't have to mention the name, but definitely the Constitutional Review Commission, okay, they recommended for an amendment to remove in 60 clause 8 the phrase absent from Ghana, because they feel that it deserves the action to further cure the absurdity that fails to take the account of technology and the truth that the President and Vice remain who they are constitutionally whenever they travel outside. That is acting, even beyond the borders of our country.
Speak to that. There are those who are saying that even if the President is out of this country, he's still the President, and with technology, he can still perform his function. This matter has been resolved by the Attorney General, a case in the Supreme Court, Asari versus Attorney General, where the Supreme Court said that the intent of the Constitution is that at all material time, there shouldn't be a void, and that there must be somebody who is the head of this country. So the Supreme Court has ruled on this matter that at all times there should be an individual that is holding the reins of this country. So that has been decided.
Okay, you know J.H. Mensah, he won a case in court, or sought an interpretation in court.
Rollover ministers.
Good. And we can't equate we can't equate president and the vice to the roles they play as being ministers. Okay, but where a minister takes an oath as a deputy minister, and he's being appointed to another position as a deputy minister, he doesn't appear before a committee, the parliamentary committee on appointments.
Yeah.
When we have a minister being appointed, doesn't take an oath, the president doesn't swear the person into office again, into another ministry. Do you understand? Because the person has early on taken an oath to be a minister of state. So it doesn't matter which ministry you're posted. Can we also frame all this in the same argument?
So I was surprised when you said we cannot compare the ministerial position.
No, I'm asking whether we can.
We can't. Why not? These are all people who are performing functions of the state. So why would you want to treat them differently when it comes to swearing an oath? For a minister to move from one ministerial portfolio to the other, he does not swear an oath again. So for me, I mean, we are just going around in circles about things that are not really substantial to me. Maybe for the academia, yes, let's make all these arguments. But truth be told, how does it change anything? The president is still a president. If we need somebody to represent the president here in the jurisdiction of this country, the constitution is so clear that this is the president. So why would you want to? You have already taken an oath to perform a function in the absence of the president. That's what the constitution tells you. So as soon as you like for the vice president, when the vice president is not, the president is not in, the vice president automatically because why? The constitution has made that provision.
But because he was sworn in early.
Yeah.
And
to play a certain function, that is legislative function. Now the example you've given rather buttresses the argument I've been making all this while. If you are a deputy minister and you are
being rolled over into another
deputy minister, you don't swear an oath, or you are not sworn, you don't appear before parliament, because you've already gone through the process of becoming a deputy minister. So you are just moving to another deputy minister position
on the same level.
On the same level. But if you are a deputy minister and you are now going to a minister, you appear before the parliamentary, because
and then you swore an oath before the president.
So you are now moving to another area that you were not. Your oath.
Your oath did not have any jurisdiction
over that place. So it really buttresses this point, because this man is moving from legislative to executive. He has to swear an oath to fit in there. Just as how the minister would have to also swear an oath, the deputy minister, if he's becoming a minister.
He doesn't think that we need to make a meal out of all this. He feels that...
I disagree.
Well, okay. Now, do you think we need to be very explicit in the Constitution? But also even based on the recommendations as we have it by the review committee of the Constitution?
Yes, normally,
of the Commission.
Normally, it is when you put the law into practice that you begin to see gray areas. So when these things happen, for instance, I would want there to be a specific oath for the speaker when he's assuming
because he's not an elected president.
Exactly. So we must have an oath for that. I also think that the issue of whether the president can still be president when he's out of the country must be resolved. Whether we want it to be like this, or that when he even leaves the country, he still can be a president because there's technology and he can still talk to.
Okay, your comment on this, and then we roll over our comment, because the president is still outside performing a duty, and so we'll have to specifically talk about what he's talking about.
Well, I still would maintain that all this we're doing is just to create discussion. The speaker made it clear that this decision was not taken just by himself. He did that in consultation with the Chief Justice, who herself would have sworn him in, and also the leadership of Parliament. So I think that Parliament is also the master of his own rules.
For Parliament.
Yeah, Parliament is also the master of its own rules. So if the Chief Justice, who was supposed to swear him in, had agreed that it is not important for such an oath to be taken again, and I agree with that principle, that it is not important. For me, it is never important for another oath to be sworn in by anybody else, because the Constitution had made that provision clear that you kickstart it automatically kickstarts the situation. That is my point of view, and so we should allow the system to run.
Unfortunately, the Chief Justice, people are dragging the Chief Justice here. The Chief Justice does not proffer opinions or make rulings when he's in Parliament. The Chief Justice proffers opinions and make rulings and make orders when she is sitting in the Supreme Court. So I don't think that we should bring in the Chief Justice here at all. Yes, there may be consultation with the Chief Justice, but the Chief Justice jurisdiction is when she is interpreting the Constitution at the Supreme Court.
What is happening? Is it illegal? Is it unconstitutional?
That is what is now
per the law.
Yes.
Is it unconstitutional? If it's unconstitutional,
Per the law, it's unconstitutional because the law doesn't. The law says that if you want to swear in the speaker or you want the speaker to act, he has to swear an oath.
Okay, so
and it's stated.
so now the speaker is acting unconstitutionally as a president.
Well,
of
that's
this
the
country.
argument we're all raising.
People are making arguments.
If that is the case,
But I think that this calls for constitutional interpretation. That is my view.
So we need to go to the Supreme Court. Somebody know. Will you go to the Supreme Court?
It's just today the first day we'll consider.
I'm sure.
Because if we have a president who is acting unconstitutionally now, Honorable Jaho is acting unconstitutionally.
You can't say that.
That's the argument. No, it doesn't lie in our mouth. That's the argument.
Let's go.
It's an argument that's been raised outside.
Let's go to the Supreme Court.
Yes.
Now the